like I said, we're getting into a forgiveness conversation today. Let's just call it that. Yeah. Okay. And our two guests are in the studio this morning. Karanu Muchiri is a tax expert with the Kenya Revenue, and Jerioth Muthoni Mbai is also here with us. And we're looking at, they're the guys who understand this thing. They're tax experts. They can wake up in the middle of their sleep and we say, if I do hush, and they say, yes, actually. In the morning, very early, they're able to tell you what to do, when to do, who to go to, where to go, isn't it? Yes, you guys are the ones. And we're having a conversation about why we should take advantage of the amnesty and take advantage of that today. So, welcome to Kenya's Biggest Conversation. You are in the hot seats of the Situation Room today. CT is here. Muchiri is our guest host for today, and we're all having this conversation so they can help us understand a little bit more about what's going on. But you know how when you go to people's homes, they welcome you with a cup of tea? We welcome you with a proverb. And CT goes to African countries. He's a great guy because he's able to go visa, no problem. Goes, picks up these proverbs, and he comes back and then he gives them to you. Your job is to interpret this and tell us now what it means to you after he's done that. Good?
Good.
Voila. Roger?
Yes, our proverbs the whole of this week come from the Republic of Mauritius. When the head is too big, it cannot dodge blows.
Okay.
Karanu?
Thank you, CT, Shiro, and Ndu for having us today. Listening to your proverb, CT, when the head is too big,
Yes.
it cannot dodge blows.
Nope.
I think as you grow or as you elevate in the echelons of power, expectations rise. And there's a point at which now you can't dodge them because with more power comes more responsibility. So the bigger your head grows, the more that is expected of you. Yeah.
Wow.
Interesting.
What about you, Muthoni? These guys have come with expertise apart from tax. Let's see if Muthoni is also going to share.
Good morning.
Good
and
morning.
Thank you so much for hosting us. I think I agree with Karanu's explanation or my interpretation of the proverb, but I would also interpret it as the more you're out there, the more you're out there, the more your matters are out there, the more you're likely to get targeted.
You see? The more visible you are.
The more visible you are.
We hear your pain.
Yeah. The more you're
We
likely
hear your pain.
Jiro wants to tell you something.
No. Now, you know, I think I'm hearing, feel your pain. I must speak because I have a very close relative who runs a business. And since the last maybe 4 or 5 years, KRA has, I think, set up a desk almost in their office for daily monitoring. And I think businesses have had a very painful time because of the manner of tax collection. So when I hear what you're saying, on your side, I think it's also been difficult.
Yes.
I think the targets have been high, and this money is collected at a difficult time. So I can imagine the pain is on both sides.
Yes.
What would you want to say to business people who see that number and think, oh my God, who think of you on the weekend and on Sunday? Because I think you're terrorizing their lives. What would you want them to, what would you want to say to them?
For a moment there, Wanjiro, I thought you'd had a road to Damascus experience and you had changed, but you're still the same.
Sure, what I think is, number one, if you've not been doing your taxes for quite a long time, and it is like that with so many other things in life, not just taxes, when it all comes down and it needs to be done, you'll have a lot to do. But there are people who've been complying since they got pins. They've been compliant. They file, they pay. They file, they pay. There are people who file and accumulate. They don't pay. You file, you don't pay. The other people who just do business, they don't declare. So when you're needed to declare, you find yourself with a huge bulk that needs to be done, to be declared, to be paid. And now at that point, people tend to think and say that KRA is harsh on me, KRA has been harsh on me. But even when that happens, I would like to demystify this. KRA is not as scary as people have always thought. You can come forward. So many people have come forward with their tax issues. This is what is in the table. I cannot pay this whole amount at once. We offer payment plans. Yeah. And so long as you stick to your payment plan, nobody is going to bother you. You go on with your business, and we're not going to.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, of course, the tax regime changed because of. Is it the advanced taxes? It's also the taxing at is it at billing or at invoicing, so that the moment somebody has procured a service, they then need to pay tax for that, and they have 30, 60 days waiting for the creditor to pay. How do you operate in that space when you're really taxing somebody for money they haven't collected?
Yeah, no, that may sound as a problem. I would love to agree with you on that, Shiro, because what people don't understand is when you go to the law, I think when you're talking about this, you're specifically talking about VAT. VAT, there's something called the tax point. When does VAT become due? It is the earliest of when you issued your invoice, got the certificate, the payment, or the delivery of the services or the goods. That is the tax point.
Okay.
So if you go by the law, you need to declare VAT at the tax point, and the tax point is the earliest of the four, whichever comes first.
So would we be right in saying that of the businesses that the government owes some 800 billion in pending bills, that possibly some of those businesses actually had to pay their VAT for money that they
are yet to collect?
So that's out of KRA's hands, but that's the reality.
That is the law. It is not in care. Now that would have to, we would have to change the law if we wanted to make it a little bit more accommodative.
And KRA doesn't make laws.
You enforce.
We enforce.
And then could your missed targets, because KRA has been operating on the basis of missed targets. And of course, you have a champion in the Auditor General who says those targets are not realistic, but again, KRA does not set the targets, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Could those missed targets be because of these pending bills? What is causing these missed targets?
It can't be entirely because of the pending bills, definitely, but we can say it's because of when it comes to missing targets and the pending bills, there is definitely a correlation.
But let me ask a question, Wanjiro. If we're talking about pending bills, where does KRA come in?
They come in because the moment that company gave the service,
yes,
issued an invoice,
yes,
they needed to pay VAT on that.
Yes.
That company has then delivered whatever service, is waiting to be paid, but they need to pay KRA.
Yes.
So they either will pay and have a deficit in their accounts, or they won't pay, and KRA then can't collect. So KRA shows they should collect that money, but they can't collect. So pending bills means businesses aren't paid, but they have to pay tax even though they haven't been paid.
Okay, I think that's a good precursor to this conversation now, when we're looking at what the responsibility then of citizens and what they need to do then in terms of their individual payments. So now we're looking at a time when we're going to the season where a lot of these returns must be filed, where sometimes you are in a situation whereby there have been interest and penalties levied on a payment that has been unmade. And so we're going into that amnesty offer period. What would get us to the point whereby you have to apply for an amnesty here, and we're saying, is it because returns have not been filed? Is it that we're saying that we have not met the deadline? Where are we with all of this, Karanu?
Okay. So the amnesty program was rolled out with the Finance Act of 2023, and it was from effect of 1st September of 2023 and ending on the 30th of June this year, 2024. This was out of a need by the Kenya Revenue Authority to facilitate our taxpayers, because ultimately we believe in tax facilitation and compliance of the said taxpayers. So the feedback that we got during last year's finance bill, when it was a finance bill 2023 engagement, is that taxpayers would like to come into the tax bracket, but they need a form of reprieve. So the proposal at the time that was passed in the Finance Act of 2023 was to induce, or rather to bring in, the amnesty program. And now the amnesty program simply states this, that you come and pay your principal tax, and as a revenue authority, should you qualify, we shall forgo all penalties and all interest that is due at the time. So this is a program that we have been running for the past 9 months, and we're telling our taxpayers, please come. Whatever you owe, the tax due, all penalties, all interest, all fines, all principal, the only thing the authority is asking you is that should you pay all your principal tax on or before the 30th of June, subject to you qualifying, you shall have a 100% amnesty on your penalties and interest.
So how would I accrue penalties and interests on what? Did I not file my tax returns? Did I do them late? Did I just disappear under the radar from KRA? What did I do that will get me to the point whereby I need to then apply for amnesty?
Remember that your interaction with the regulator, Kenya Revenue Authority, is mostly a compliance function. And for us to be able to move forward this nation we call Kenya, we need taxpayers to comply with their respective tax obligations. So when you have a fine, or when you have a penalty, or when you have an interest, it's because you were not compliant in one area. It could be a non-filing compliance issue. It could be a late filing compliance issue. It could be a late payment compliance issue. Because remember, all of these things are pegged on what we call due dates. So if you file your VAT late, or if you pay your VAT late, there are penalties and interest that come with that, or payee, or your annual tax. And all of this is valid tax due. Because when you go to the definition of tax, it is principal, penalties, and interest. That is valid tax. So KRA, in an effort to meet our taxpayers halfway, or to help them on this compliance journey, we said, come and pay your principal. We're willing to give you an amnesty on the penalties and interest on the non-compliance you have had, so that we can onboard you onto the compliance program.
What was the target of, because you'd have an idea, and people could file, they underfile, or whatever reason. What has been the uptake on the amnesty in terms of what you had targeted? Are people taking it up?
Actually, we do. We've had very positive response from our taxpayers. We have seen that year to date, when I looked at the figures sometime last week, we've had an uptake in excess of 1 million taxpayers coming forward and saying that they want to benefit from the Tax Amnesty program. In that same period, we have collected in excess of 20 billion. But here's the thing that I'd also like to emphasize. In the amnesty program, KRA has foregone tax revenue of over 200 billion in penalties and interest, because we really are interested in ensuring that our taxpayers are compliant.
Okay.
Yes.
So let's maybe then go back to the ABCs of all of this.
Yeah.
That we might overlook it, but there's a very high possibility that folks are still unsure about what to do to file, where, when, how, what, right? So can you take us back there to that filing of returns? What exactly, Muthoni, is supposed to happen at that time, June 30th, however, people knew since January that you should file by June. But what's supposed to happen, for all avoidance of doubt?
Filing of returns, that's what we want. Okay. When it comes to filing returns, you cannot, let me first say something. You cannot file returns for income tax until the period is over. Okay. So right now people are filing January to December 2023.
Yes.
Because it ended.
Yes.
And when are you supposed to file it? By the 60th month after the end of the period.
So by June. the next
Exactly,
year.
by June. That
Where
is
we
what I
are now.
wanted to get.
Okay.
And that applies for all individuals. The period ends in December 31st. But there are companies, of course. So that is why I have talked about the 6 months period to file your returns, especially for companies. Now, if you do not do that, you will attract penalties.
Okay.
If you do not file your returns on time, you will attract penalties. If you do not pay whatever you have filed you're supposed to pay, if you do not pay it on time, you're lost.
No. I'm
You
following
okay?
you. Yes.
If you do not pay it on
She's
time,
just playing the high taxes and the things that happen in my
I'm
mind.
trying to
We are all
figure
doing
out
the
my
maths.
penalties.
Just
if you do
continue.
not pay it on time,
Yes.
it begins to attract interest. And interest is based on principal tax. Okay? And of course, the induplum applies. You cannot, the interest should not go beyond the principal.
principal,
Yeah, of course,
yes.
that applies even with KRA. But what I'm basically saying, if you do not file your returns on time, you will get penalties. If you do not pay on time, interest shall start to accumulate on the principal tax that you failed to pay on time.
What's the interest rate, by the way?
Sorry, the
Rates, yes.
1% per
Annum.
no per month. It's 1% per month.
Let me ask this question. When you brought in the issue of what's that thing called? The one where you haven't been paid pending bills. Yes. Somebody owes money, they are owed, they haven't been paid, and they can't pay taxes because they don't have the money because they haven't been paid. What do they do? The pending bill story with regards to tax. I have interest, I have penalties. But the reason I have interest and penalties is because, in all honesty, I haven't been paid. And I'm waiting to be paid, but I'm not being paid. But there's this situation. Now, when I call 0711099999, how will I be assisted in this situation? Because I'm really willing to pay.
But don't you file based on something that you've already received? So
No.
now this is I'm asking for people because this is a genuine
Yes.
concern. That there is the thinking, and I'm sorry, I'm dovetailing
Oh,
on
no.
what you've
You've
said
done a
here.
good thing. You've
Yeah,
actually
trying
carried
to
off.
open
Yes.
up a little bit because there is the assumption for a lot of people out here, and I think that's why it's very important that we're having this conversation, that I don't have to file anything for payment that I have not received. I've not received the money, so you cannot then claim that I can pay you. Is that a misconception?
It is a misnomer because businesses operate on the accruals concept of accounting and not on a cash basis of accounting. So when you follow the accruals concept of accounting, you account for your business as and when the service is incurred, not as and when you receive the actual cash. And therefore, when you extrapolate it into taxation, the same applies. So that is why she was talking about issues of tax point, where VAT is concerned. And even when you're filing your returns, for example, what you were mentioning, we look at what is your fiscal calendar. For individuals, KRA has capped the fiscal calendar at December for everybody. Businesses have the luxury of choosing when their fiscal calendar shall end, but they too must account for their taxes within 6 months after the end of their fiscal calendar.
Okay.
So that is why taxpayers must file their returns on or before June, but they have from January to do so.
So then comes in CT's question. I've put that in my computation.
Yes.
It is money expected.
Yes.
Right? Many people do business with government or whomever will owe them. The money has not come in. You're expecting, and I'm going to pay the tax on that business that has been done, but it has not been paid. What do I do? You still charge me interest and penalties, but you've seen the computation, but the money has not come in. What do I do?
Now, KRA is an institution that is governed by law and run by men.
And women.
And women. Very, very true. No, actually, that's true. I think in this era, we have to say both men and women. But there was a time the word men. People. It's run by people. Thank you, Shiro.
Yes, yeah.
It's run by people. And when you come and you meet your account manager, because every single taxpayer does have an account manager, and you explain the circumstances surrounding your transaction or your business, there are mechanisms through which we can onboard you for payment plans, like she mentioned earlier, or give you a time period within which you to settle your tax bills. Where pending bills are concerned, as you have highlighted several times, there are provisions administratively that look into that kind of scenario that is causing you not to meet your tax obligation or your tax payment needs. So yes, we administer the law, but we understand that there might be circumstances that may cause you as a taxpayer to not meet your obligation as is. And of course, within reasonable timelines, we give you payment plans, or we give you times to settle your affairs. Because even that same law provides for so long as you inform the commissioner of a particular transaction or a particular challenge that you're facing as a business, the commissioner may give you leeway or not based on the circumstances that you've presented to them.
We have to take a break. But you see the way you're talking? Even if I don't have the money, I'll go and find it, come and pay. But the problem is that people complain that when we go to KRA,
Other things.
at Times Tower, we don't talk like Karanu.
You make sure that your medical card is updated.
Yes.
No, we
Heart
always
attack.
Stress. Nothing is sure in life.
So I mean,
death and taxes.
So what?
Those two things.
What would be there in terms of how people are then treated, or how people have to then deal with the conversation when they're having face-to-face conversations about this thing? Seems to be a bit dicey sometimes.
No, it's not, because you see, at the end of the day, like I said, this is what I keep using. If you qualify, because we must verify that you do. Anyone can walk in and claim that they're not able to do so, but it is simply a matter of not prioritizing your tax obligations to us. If in this scenario, genuinely you qualify and you need some assistance in terms of meeting your tax obligations, there are provisions that can allow for that. And in terms of service delivery, I do believe if you visit any KRA office, you shall find our officers bound by the same ethos and the same values, where they're supposed to be trustworthy, ethical, competent, helpful, and simple. And any KRA officer that you meet must treat you within those values that we have as an institution.
Okay, so you've accrued penalties, you've accrued interest on your principal amount that you must pay as tax. And some folks seem to be telling us that the amnesty program is working. But before we get there and you say, how does that actually get into... How does it help, Muthoni, when you say, okay, fine? Is it encouraging people to come in and pay when you tell them that we will not penalize you for whatever happened, just come and pay the interest? Do we see more people actually fulfilling their obligation with the offering of this amnesty?
Yes, we have many people, especially individuals, the zero filers, the nil filers, companies who had principal taxes owing. You know, we have companies, you find someone has principal tax of up to, say, 2 million, but the penalty and interest in different various periods is almost the same 2 million. So you find those people are really coming out. I will settle my principal and the penalties and interest all waived.
And like you say, they can do a plan to...
Yes, it has actually been going on. Sure, it has been going on since September 2023, as he said. This is something that has been going on for 9 months now. It has been there. People who had, say, for example, we're working with someone who has, say, 2 million outstanding principal only. They were able to pay it in bits. September, they paid some amount. October, like that. On a monthly basis, you can pay it as often as you wish. And so long as you pay it by 30th of June, 2024. So we have 11 days.
What happens if you don't pay it by the 30th of June?
Whatever you will have paid by 30th of June, you know how taxes are distributed. It is, for example, say VAT, it's January VAT, February VAT. So if you had paid, say, from January to to June, you had outstandings. Let's say in 2021, you had January to June debts.
Yes.
You have paid. The penalties and interest in January to June will be waived.
Okay.
So long as you've cleared. Amnesty is per period, per obligation. You go
not
to
per amount paid.
It works like this. Say we have let's say, for example, you get a debt summary. We always give taxpayers a debt summary. This is your debt. I just can't come to you and tell you owe 2 million. How do I owe 2 million? Income tax, you owe say 500,000. This is the penalty. This is the interest. The income tax. Which income tax? Which period? 2020 you owe this. 2021 this. 2019 this, like that. We give you a proper breakdown. Now, say you go to 2019, you pay the principal component of the debt. The penalty and interest in that period is waived. So whatever period you shall not have cleared the principal tax by 30th June, the penalties and interest and fines, if any, in those periods will remain payable after 30th of June.
Okay. I was really hoping that if somebody comes on the plan and says, okay, I have 2 million principal, 2 million interest accrued and penalties, I want to join the program, they are then eligible for the waiver and then a plan to pay.
No. You see, when
those principal and interest must be cleared at the same time.
The principal is cleared, the penalty is an interest. Okay. You do your bit, we do our bit.
And you had a 9-month period.
It has been there. It came with the Finance Act 2023.
Let me ask this question. There is a concept, I'm referring to it as a concept because the reality of it I haven't witnessed. I'm sure some have, called a refund.
I wasn't quite sure where you were going with that.
But now you do.
I got it. Okay.
See, it exists.
Yes.
KRA sometimes refund.
Yes.
And is it prompt? Is it expeditious, or does it take time?
What have you heard?
As I respond to the refund question, I must also emphasize that the tax amnesty period runs for all obligations up until the 31st of December 2022.
Where we are currently.
Okay. Because this act came into force last year, and the framers of that particular piece of legislation limited the amnesty to 31st of December 2022. So all taxes from the beginning of time up until 31st December 2022 are the ones that fall within the amnesty period.
Yes.
Any new taxes from January 1,
that.
2023 do not fall as present in law.
They're current, exactly.
Do not fall under the amnesty program.
Okay.
To answer your question of the refund.
Yes.
Refund actually exists, subject to you qualifying for the refund.
I mean, with KRA, we figured it out. You have to qualify for everything.
Yes, you do. Because CT, you can come and claim from the Revenue Authority. Revenue Authority, you owe me 10,000 shillings. How are we supposed to respond to that? Whereas maybe Ndu generally has an actual refund of 100,000, and we're yet to verify it. So we need you to bring documents that can actually verify your claim.
It makes perfect sense.
And once you've done it, we must make that refund determination within 90 days. Not the refund disbursement. The determination as to whether you qualify for refund must be done within 90 days.
Okay.
Then now the disbursement is a matter of the exchequer allocating funds for that. So for example, Treasury does allocated for VAT refunds. Income tax refunds are things that possibly could be considered this particular financial year.
As in by 30th of June?
No.
This financial year is still here. It ends on the 30th?
Yeah, but come 1st of July,
voilà,
we're in a different financial
year. So are we
year.
talking consideration or are we talking disbursement?
We're talking consideration. You see,
Actually,
Kenya Revenue Authority.
Disbursements
happen where allocation has been
made.
done.
And allocation is something
appropriated.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
That means it can only be a year, like after the verification.
No.
Also, there's a block amount that's made available.
Yes.
It's made available for refunds.
Okay.
And there's a refund section that has a target.
Okay. Now, KRA collects money daily.
Yes.
Okay. Do you remit it to Treasury daily? This is where I'm going with this question. I'm tying it in with the refund thing. Do you remit it daily?
It must be remitted to the exchequer.
daily. You can't keep some to offset these small things like refunds and so forth.
But this is money,
Like
this
in the
is
lockbox.
taxpayer money belonging to the exchequer. You must remember that KRA's function is to be the principal collector of government revenue. So KRA cannot keep money that is from UCT, from your salary, and everybody else in this studio for its own purposes. That is public money. So all we are doing is to be the custodians of public trust where revenue collection is concerned.
Okay. What I really wanted to ask is, since the disbursement is more or less indeterminate, are there penalties and interest that accrue to this refund
KRA.
when you've delayed paying me? Can I also claim?
Actually,
Yes, there's an interest.
there is.
Yes.
Okay.
That's fair.
That's fair.
But we don't know the details of it.
But
you have to
what
ask
I
how
think
much?
what
What's the-
Karanu,
No, what's
Okay.
the interest, first of all?
What's the-
I think maybe
what Karanu
1%.
failed to say
Yeah,
is
per month.
the beginning of all this whole refund thing begins with the taxpayer. You need to apply for the refund.
So yeah, the
Because
responsibility is
in
upon your shoulders
iTax,
to actually get that
Agreed.
done.
Taxpayers, especially companies, complain that those refunds take too long. Are you saying that the major problem is the application and verification, or is the biggest delay in the exchequer honouring refunds? Is the system working?
Yes, it's working.
on the side of KRA, it's working
Okay.
because you try it. An idea, if you have a refund, just make the application.
And see. So let's talk about making applications, and I think that's where a lot of the questioning is coming in this morning from folks who are saying, okay, so the amnesty offering has been made, and as usual, what it is how do I actually go about it? Now we're talking nitty gritty. I mean, we've been here and we're talking about it, but then let's hear it from you. What exactly needs to happen for me to apply for a tax amnesty? Okay, I don't have that much time, but okay, we're here. What do I need to do today, and how do I need to do it in order to be considered for amnesty by the 30th of June?
All right. We have different scenarios. There are people who have never. Let us begin with this. You cannot accrue arrears unless you file, and you have to file and file it by the due date. So if you have not filed your returns, kindly make sure you file all your returns up to date. The ones that are late will accrue penalties. If you had principal, it will accrue interest. But what we are saying is, you file, you pay, by 30th of June, of course we shall waive the penalties and interest for the amnesty period. And then there's someone who has already filed, they just have penalties and interest in the iTax system. If you log into your iTax, you see that you have penalties and interest, but you do not have any principal tax. There is something called the login trigger. Right now, the way the system has been made, if you are a person who has arrears in iTax, and these arrears are just penalties and interest and probably fines, but no principal tax, if you log in, the penalties and interest will be automatically waived. That is called the login trigger. And then there are people who have principal taxes in alongside penalties and interest.
Muthoni,
Yes.
let's take a few steps back.
Okay, sorry.
please.
All right.
When I hear you say login, ndu.oko@itax, let's just assume that's what it is. Then I put in my password and I go. By virtue of the fact that I have logged in,
Yes.
the thing sees, Ndu's here. If she had any arrears or whatever, all of that is wiped out. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, it's
If
called
you
the
don't have
law.
it.
If you do not have, especially, it is happening especially with people who normally file nil returns, and then they end up filing them late.
Okay.
So then they only get a 2,000 penalty, 2,000 penalty, 2,000 penalty.
Yeah.
The moment you log in, it's called the law, and you're up to date with your filings and everything. Huh?
Yes.
The moment you log in, it's called the login trigger.
Okay.
The system automatically executes the amnesty.
Okay.
And then there's another trigger we call the payment trigger. The payment trigger is for people who have principal taxes that are hindering the system from executing the amnesty. So what do you need to do? You apply for amnesty. If you log into iTax, at the top there's a tab written debt and enforcement. Yeah.
Yes.
Under that tab, there's just one drop down, amnesty application. You click on it, it will give you options to select the tax head for where you have principal taxes. And then you just go adding. The system will give you a payment plan. It does not need to be approved by a KRA officer. The moment you apply, the system will give you a payment plan. But now problem is right now we have 11 days. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So this used to work very well when we had a lot of months. Say from September, there are people who came from September, from the beginning of the year. It would split the principal tax only into the months you have
left
until 30th June. Yeah. So right now, if you apply, it will give you one installment. Because that is
in other words, the target you've hit is likely to be the target you stay at.
No.
In amnesty.
No.
Because for somebody to come for amnesty, that means they have to have the money to pay.
Yes, you have to have the principal bit.
The principal. So you say you've had success of 1 million taxpayers who've gone for the amnesty. What were the number of non-compliant?
The number is still, I don't have the specific number, but the number is still high. We are
over 1 million?
Of what we were targeting, we are slightly above 50%.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. But we are calling people to come. We still need it to go to 100%. So we're saying, kindly come forward. And let me just say something. Do not be afraid to go to your tax station. It doesn't matter how messy your account is. We are there and we are willing to help you comply with this thing.
Okay.
Repeat that again, please.
Say it again for good measure.
Do not be afraid, kindly.
Yeah.
Feel free to come. It does not matter how messy your account is. I have no interest in there's no gain in me seeing you paying penalties and interest.
For goodness sake.
Even me, I don't want to pay penalties and interest. Yeah. The best I can do is come and help you comply with what is provided, like the amnesty, so that you benefit from you do your bit, you benefit from the other bit. But you need to come forward first, yeah?
Okay. And with 50% compliance, how come KRA didn't petition the present finance bill for an extension of the amnesty? If you've had 50%, are you seeing that these 50% then can't be reached? Maybe they don't want to pay?
No, I think
because
they just...
If it worked, why not give more time?
I think that is up to the government to decide. But basically, with the Finance Act, actually, I want to also say something. The Finance Act 2023 brought in the amnesty. It also deleted the waiver application and the write-off applications, which is where we are saying, let us start on a clean slate, where there are no more accumulation. There's no more accumulation of penalties, interest, fines, and all that.
So, Karanu, then maybe you can just expound a little bit more. And I think it's important because, again, if we're just looking at what people have said here, and these are probably amongst the people that 50% that are being waited for to come and apply for this, that. As you get in, and whether it is the login trigger or whether it is the payment trigger, what we're talking about now here is the penalties and interest. And then it gives you a further provision for the principal amount that you still have left for that to be paid in installments. Because there is also an understanding that you're waiving penalties and interest. You don't have to pay that at all. It's gone. It's zero. And then the principal amount that you have left, whatever that may be, that you can pay that in installments if you had come in September, for example, or if you had come in January. But are we essentially saying that now that we have 11 days, you're not going to get 11 installments and an installment per day? It's the rest of the amount that's then payable now. What if I can't?
They remain payable. The whole amount, the principal, the penalties, the interest, they shall remain payable.
Even if I'm not able to at that point,
they will remain payable.
Okay.
So, do I hear you to be
saying
saying
we can still give you a payment plan.
That's what I'm asking.
To clear the debt.
So,
but
that is what
the
I'm
whole
asking.
debt is payable. Let us first get that.
That's clear. But you see, we've come. We're having a conversation right
You've
now.
Come, say today.
Yeah. I've come.
Today.
I've come.
Okay.
Muthoni. Karanu, I've come. And I've told you've told me no matter how messy it is, I've come and I've said, look, you've said that we can waive the penalties and interest by virtue of the fact that I've come today. The principal amount is still remaining. Can I still have a conversation with you and say, look, this is what I'm able to do. I'm not because of 1, 2, 3. I'm having an open and honest conversation with you. Are you willing to hear me out, and what can be done?
Yes, I'm willing to hear you out.
What can be done?
What happens? I think your major concern is if you go beyond the deadline.
Yes.
Having not cleared the principal tax.
Because we deal with an issue, and this is one of the questions that's even here, that we tend to leave things to the last minute.
Yeah.
And then there's the rush, and we're all running around trying to do 1, 2, 3, and then have to deal with that, isn't it? Why does that happen? And then how are you able to deal with that?
The way we deal with that is we can give you a payment plan. We won't be on your neck like pay the whole amount at once. No. You come, you say, I have this debt, I am not able to pay by this, so my amount payable is this. How can I structure it to be paid? We give you a payment plan. I cannot be able to pay. There are people who come forward and say, I can't pay this whole amount at once. Okay, fine, let us divide it into 8 months. Can you do that? Yes, it's okay. Fine, we sign the payment plan. You can even do the payment plan online. It's actually advisable to do the payment plan online via iTax. There's a tab for application for an online payment plan. We agree on the payment plan, we approve it. So your job will be to pay this installment on or by the due date.
So are you seeing a higher number of businesses and individuals unable to pay because of the economic times?
Yes.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, yes.
So Karanu,
people are struggling, but they are still very willing to do this. To do the
so
plan.
You're getting into more plans.
Yes, which is very advisable.
Some filing of returns don't happen because in some cases, and this is another big question coming out here, is that employers have not remitted payments. And it turns out that then becomes your responsibility. How do you deal with that if you even no longer work in that particular organization? And then you find out later, oh my God, these fellas never actually paid this thing. How do you deal with that?
So you visit your account manager, your nearest tax service office. You present them with your P9 for the period at which you're in the employ of that particular tax, or rather of that particular employer. And now KRA shall administratively ensure that that particular employer comes into the compliance bracket. But you must inform KRA, because this could impede your ability to comply, because your account is showing that there is tax owing, but in reality it's because your payee credits were never credited to your individual account. So in that scenario, once the authority is aware, the respective account manager will follow up with that employer's account manager to see how we can regularize that particular account.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think it's important we state that you as an employee, it is your job to file your returns on time, right?
Yes.
If your employer does not pay on time, KRA will be there. KRA is there to collect that money from this employer because they are hindering the compliance of all these employees.
Indeed.
Yeah. But let me also say that in a situation you as an employee have arrears that are due to your employee not remitting the pay they deducted.
Yeah.
For any facilitation you will need, KRA will facilitate you. Should it be the tax compliance, you've done your bit.
So they can do the rest.
We will do the rest. We will give you the compliance, the clearance, whatever certificate you need from compliance. So long as you filed your returns, file them on time. The fault is on your employer. We shall facilitate.
Big conversations to continue, and unfortunately time is short, but I think you should come back. Thank you very much, Karanu, Muchiri and Muthoni Mbai. Thank you for being here this morning, and the conversations continue indeed. Asante sana.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.